So living embodied really is walking in the world, being in the world in this authentic state. And we could even peel back the layers of what authentic state means or what authenticity means. And at its purest, rawest form, authenticity is being real. So what you're thinking, feeling, being, doing, it's just an emanation of you, and you are expressing that in the world. And part of the embodiment of that is the being. And so often we think that we have to do this and we have to do that, but more than anything, when you are living embodied, when you are being the embodiment of your truth, when you are being the embodiment of that authentic expression, you're being it. There's no games, there's no masks, there's no, shoulda, woulda, coulda. There's all of the things that you think you need to be doing. It's just like you're allowing yourself to be. And through living embodied, there's a lot of adaptability that happens because we're changing all of the time. So who you were a couple months ago could be different than who you are now. And not to label things as good or bad, but we're always changing and evolving. And so knowing that marker or that true north for self, that internal compass that we have, that allows yourself to know the realness of you. Like, that just sounds so silly, but to know the realness of you, to be the realness of you, to share the realness of you no matter what, is part of the embodiment. And as we've seen, probably through your life, and as we see a lot in society, being unique or being, yourself in different ways isn't always accepted. Right? You have to fit into a box. You have to fit into a mold. If you've got a career, there's different hats that you wear. If you've got different roles as a parent, a partner, whatever that is, you've got these different hats that you wear. However, the embodied living, there's no masks. I just have to stress that there's no masks. There's no games. There's no questioning who you are and what you're doing because you know. Does that make sense? And sometimes we can go through these stages of being in the wilderness, right? Where it's almost like a rebirthing process, or those points in time of your life where you might feel lost and you might feel confused and you might question that. But at the same time, even in those moments, like, this is the beauty of, I want to say, that innate wisdom of the soul, like that divine spark that we each have in us. The beauty of that is that the divinity within us never forgets. That divine spark never forgets the truth, regardless of what situations or circumstances have been put upon you or projected onto you by others. I hear this often, and you might relate to it more with parents, but with mothers, where they've just invested their whole life into raising the kids. And if they're married, it's like being the wife, raising the kids, or even if they're single mothers, just pouring all of their heart, all of their time, all of their energy into their children, and looking after them. And then through that role of being the mother, or through motherhood, they almost lose sight of who they are, or they no longer know how to identify as anything other than the mother or the wife. And then the children grow, and then they leave the nest, so to speak, and they're so lost. They're just in these places of, who am I now that I'm not in this role? What do I even like? So that could be coming up for some of you. And that's just one example of motherhood, where you're investing all of your time and care and energy into children. But we can go through major transitions within ourselves. We can go through personal transformations, and who you were, like I said, a couple months ago is not who you are right now. And something that's interesting to look at, though, we do have these core predispositions or qualities or characteristics that are almost embedded within us, which could be a compass or that gauge to your truth, to the realness of you. And how can you be that in the world? Like, that's what part of the embodiment is about. There's a level of confidence with it. You might not always feel comfortable. Sometimes it could feel intimidating. Sometimes you could be concerned about how other people will perceive it. But part of the work of living and being the embodiment of your truth, and just like who you are, who you came here to be. Let's even say that, who your soul chose you to be, who you came here to be, and how you came here to be in the world. When we sacrifice that or compromise that, it can be suffocating. It can be stifling. Sometimes it can create health conditions as well, right? When you're repressing what you're thinking, what you're feeling, when you're repressing your nature and who you are, there can actually be health conditions that come up in a physical way, but even mental health and things of that nature. So things to ask or be curious about would be gauging. I don't want to say pros and cons, but gauging. What does it cost you to minimize yourself? What does it cost you to shrink? What does it cost you to hide? What does it cost you to fit in a mold that you have no place fitting in? What does it cost you to be someone that you're not? Right? And so to ask those questions. And then the flip side of that, what could it cost you? Because sometimes there could be a risk involved for being embodied. You might lose relationships. Things change, of course, especially if you've been in your world being a specific way. People are used to you in a specific way. Like, let's say you're the person that always says yes. Somebody could go to you, which is beautiful, such a gift and a blessing to be there and hold space for people. You're the one that always says yes, but to everybody else and not yourself, right? And then you could be saying yes to people, and deep down inside, it's just like you don't want to. It might go against your morals. It might go against your values. You might not want to be of service in those ways, but you say yes anyway. So then you're saying no to yourself, and you're breaching trust with yourself, which we don't always think of in those moments, right? You might not think of it that way. So let's say, for example, you've always said yes to people. You're always there. Yes, 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 yes. When deep down inside, you've wanted to say no. And so many times you've just like clenched and been like, I want to say no, but you say yes. But then things start to change. You're honoring those yeses and nos, and what your nos are and what your yeses are. And you start to create shifts. And then those people in the world that were around you that were so used to yeses, they might be offended. They might take things personally because you always said yes to them and now you're saying no. However, and then that could just shift dynamics in relationships. And in some cases, you'll see where things were mutually beneficial. You will see where things were more transactional. You'll see the will be lifted from your eyes, or the scales will be lifted from your eyes. And I'm really starting to be in this space, and maybe some of you are too, but I'm starting to look at life and transitions as nothing is really being lost anymore. And I must admit, like, I was not thinking that way. Yeah, even more recently, there was always a loss associated to things, but I'm really shifting the way that I'm viewing that. Is not everything is lost. All the experiences that we have, we're always going to be learning and growing from them, even if people are no longer in our lives, even if different things are no longer in our lives. It's not really a loss. And sometimes, like, to really look at it of, if something or someone is no longer in your life and in your world, it's actually opened up space. You've created space and room to invite something or someone, or whatever it is, that are going to be more harmonious, is going to be more aligned, because you're coming from that place of authenticity. And remember, if we just strip it down to the bare bones, your truth, the most real expression of yourself, the person that you are inside when no one's around, like that you and then you're meeting people in that way, or you're attracting different situations in that way. So in the moments it can feel like loss and you can have grief, but at the same time, if we're living embodied, things that are no longer in alignment, it's like they can't exist anymore. Things that are out of alignment can no longer exist in your reality when you're fully being embodied. Whether it's a conscious choice for you to remove the things that are out of alignment, or where they naturally fall away. But it feels like the more that we're walking into that path of truth and authenticity, being real and fully aligned with, I want to say, God, source, divine, whatever words you want to use. But the more that we're in that space, that which is not of the divine, that which is not of that alignment, can no longer exist. Because we could even go into the frequency and resonance. It's like if you've jumped an octave in frequency, some things, people, situations weren't vibrating at that same octave, or weren't at that same tone. So it's like you're in a different music scale, so to speak, or frequency scale. And once again, this is not to say something's better, like good or bad. We're not saying just because you've expanded into a different octave that those people or situations are less than or bad. That's not what we're saying. It's just different resonance. So to really be in this embodied state, like, it's walking the walk and talking the talk. So what you're thinking is what you're saying. What you're feeling is what you're saying. How you are feeling on the inside is how you are acting out in the world. It's a state of being. Embodiment is a state of being. So there's no, I don't know, the word games. There's no games. We were talking about you're not wearing a mask. You can have a role, but you're not wearing a mask. You're not fake. there's no games involved with being embodied. And the walking the walk and talking the talk is so huge, because you can talk a good game. You can say all of the things, you can think all of the things, but when it comes down to actually doing it, what can you back up the game? And once again, like, I've been there. I've talked a good game in my life, and then it's like, oh, but you got to follow through with that. You actually have to have the actions to match up the words. So even like in that state of embodiment, it's like you're walking the walk, you're talking the talk, your actions match your words. Everything is in alignment, and there's no guessing. You're not guessing about things. Nobody else is guessing about things. Like, you're just allowing yourself to be. Like, so much of this embodiment is allowing yourself to be, not who you think you need to be, not how you think you need to be, checking off all of the boxes, like check, 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 did this, did that. No. It's coming from that purest intention and purest state of being, as you, and then the expression of that, right? Because that part of the embodiment is it's being it, of course, and being the emanation of it, but then like the expression of that out into the world. And you might meet opposition. It might feel uncomfortable at times, but once again, asking yourself, is it more comfortable to not be authentic? Is it more uncomfortable to, be in that box? Or is it more uncomfortable denying yourself, denying your truth, compromising who you are and how you are, and who you are here to be as a soul? I also need to highlight that, who your soul came here to be. Because if you're drawn to specific things, if there's, thoughts that you have or feelings that you want to express, like this is, for people that are here to use their voice, that's not coming from a whim, right? This is something that is deep and like burning within your soul to be expressed. And I have noticed throughout the years with a lot of clients, there's so much fear about speaking, their truth or sharing what they think and what they feel because of conditioning from childhood. But then we could even pan out into those soul experiences, other life streams where there was trauma associated with using your voice. There was trauma associated to be out in the world as you are. But and not to say that that can't happen now. We're not we are in a world where there are conflicting views, or we could even say different views and opinions. But I feel like in the human evolution, if we want to call it that, collectively in the human evolution, and we're seeing it in the world as well, but we are getting to that place where being quiet and complacent is not doing you any favors, or the other folks that you're meant to be connecting with, that are also here to hear you. They're here to hear you and your thoughts, your ideas, your views, because you might have similar thoughts and ideas and views. So being quiet, being complacent, that's not working. And living embodied, like, we're not doing that. You've been doing that before. That's like old news. Okay, that's old news. And once again, it's really acknowledging the fears that come up for some of you. If there's doubts around, what do I have to say, who's going to want to hear me, yada yada yada, the stories, that comes from where you're almost operating from the mind, right? And so could you give yourself the space and the grace to pause, to acknowledge that you're in your mind, and move down into the heart, like bring your thoughts into the heart, like pull your awareness into the heart, even if you have to physically touch your chest and your heart to bring you there, and then stop and pause and breathe. I feel like I do this all the time. I speak about this all the time, but it really does help in a physical way bring you centered into your heart space, out of the mind. But yeah, we're not here to we're not here to be hiding, right? And when you're embodied, you can go through these moments of withdrawal, or where you might be in hermit mode, but that's part of the embodiment too, because that could be integration. You could have been out in the world living and being, and then you need to recharge, you need to integrate. So it's really being mindful of what those cycles and rhythms are for you specifically, but to really just bring it all home. For embodied living, it is you being in your realest, purest form, period. No stories, no games, no masks, no labels, no projections, no should've, would'ves, could'ves. And there is that expression, unapologetically authentic. And although I find I did resonate with that a lot more years ago, and I don't believe we need to apologize for being who we are. And I'm in Canada specifically, and like, we are such a polite folk. Like, you bump into somebody, or sorry, somebody bumps into you, or what, I don't know. People say sorry all the time in Canada. It's like, I'm sorry, it's such a polite folk. And so, yeah, there's probably apologies for being sorry for breathing, sorry for existing up here in Canada. But yeah, I don't know. I resonated with it in a different way, but I just feel like we are allowed to be as we are. And the only one that's really going to get in the way of you doing that is you. Yes, there can be external forces, but at the same time, you get to choose if you allow those external forces to block you. You get to choose if you're going to allow those external forces to dictate who you are and how you are and allowing yourself to be. So we're all about accountability here, y'all. Being accountable for yourself, your choices, your life, all of it. Because at the end of the day, it's you, boo. So um, yeah, what are things that you can do this week to even reflect on the levels of embodiment that you have? You know, in your personal life, are you feeling fully embodied? In your career, are you feeling fully embodied? In your relationships, are you feeling fully embodied? And what does that even look like to you? What does living embodied look like and feel like to you? Because it could be different than what it is for me. I'm giving examples of what that's like, but it could be different for you. So to take some time to reflect on that, and to even offer yourself some time in the upcoming days or the upcoming week, to challenge yourself. How can I be more real in my life? How can you be more actively present in your life? Are you walking the walk? Are you talking the talk? And if yes, how can you maintain that? And if not, you gonna back up the game? You gonna like say all of the words, but like where's the actions to match it? Remember, accountability. And we need you as you. Could we also just say that? We need you as you. Each and every one of us has our own gifts to offer the world just by being. Like, that's the beauty. You don't even have to do. Just by being here, you are a gift. And so often society wants all of the benchmarkers of you have to do this, you have to be here. But on that soul level, you being here is a gift as it is. And to remember that too. Lots of love.